This is the second video about the online learning material provided by CUSP. That is Curriculum with Schools Partnership. Now, CUSP has developed support material for the early years now. CUSP describes the online material as foundational knowledge for each area of learning. Alex Bedford, the Curriculum Director of CUSP, explains how this relatively new site for EYFS and Literacy works. Now tell me, Alex, I understand that you also have early years provision within your curriculum umbrella, if you like. Could you tell us something about that?
Absolutely would love to. So from our principles, from the first 5 years of a child's life are the most important in their developmental stages. And
Absolutely.
if we don't get that right, then we're sort of fighting a legacy and we need to not do that. And so we've really worked carefully, and I've spent a lot of my career within sort of early years, key stage one and key stage two. Um, the importance of the early years is that there are so many different opinions in early years education, but what it should boil down to
Right.
is how well do young children learn best? And that's really important. So absolutely, a play-based philosophy is
Mm.
not just to fill their time. A play-based philosophy is for them to rehearse, to practice, to make mistakes, to lean into those mistakes and get better, but with high quality adult interactions. And we need to expose our youngest children to some really high quality language and books and opportunities. Now, from my experience and from my great colleague Julie Sherrington's experience, who's a national leader in education for early years, is that the thing that sometimes is missed out in early is not in every setting, is the foundational knowledge. What do those children need to know? Now, that could be foundational knowledge of how to interact, how to let someone down gently, how to say thank you for things, how to use hands that are safe. That's knowledge. And so there is a misconception that knowledge is just to do with the things that children know about, and it's dry
Yeah.
and dusty. So we've built an early years curriculum from naught all the way through to 5 years old.
Good Lord.
And it's built around a really high quality literature spine, of which Lauren's been central with Julie in curating these amazing books that children can access. But the way we think about the early years is this. First of all, what foundational knowledge do I want those children to bump into? What do they need to know? Secondly, what books would help them make sense of that? What stories? What ways can we help them do that? What would give them that inspiration? And thirdly, what opportunities and experiences would help them make sense of that? And so they
That's the
play and
important
practice.
bit. Yes,
So
thank you.
yeah, so if you don't, so if you, so what one of the early years documents, which was published years ago, said was guarding against hands in, brains off. A lovely activity with loads of glitter. I'm meant to be learning about my sound spelling correspondences. Well, hey, this is great fun, but
It's fun. Yeah.
I'm fun, but I'm not learning. So we're not about those weak proxies for learning, which Professor Rob Coe talks about. What we're talking about are really high quality experiences that are meaningful, purposeful, and allow children to play. So I'm going to share with you just our early years part of the website, which
Sure.
we are, there we go, early foundations. And our early foundations is very much around the ways we think carefully about stories, the way we use key themes. So if we look at, say, 2 to 3 year olds, there is a key theme that runs through this. So it might be we're revisiting authors, heritage text, diversity of representation. And so as we scan through here, you'll see many books that early years practitioners love and use. So if we look at the 4 to 5, for example, there are some incredibly beautiful books like The Dark with Lemony Snicket, What Makes Me a Me, The Very Glorious Each Peach Pear Plum,
Yeah.
The Squirrels Who Squabbled, so about social interactions and about how to navigate arguments. All of those things there are really important for us to use. But
Good.
what we provide in for our early years teachers is obviously training. But if I go to 4 to 5 year olds, Here's the literature spines. And so we think carefully about the foundational knowledge. So say I'm thinking about children's worries, personal, social, emotional development, right? And I'm thinking I've got a class that might be a bit worried about things. And because the early years can respond really quickly, then I might choose this book, Bear Shaped, which is the most glorious, beautiful book. And so I've chosen the foundational knowledge, I've selected that. I'm then thinking which book would help expose that knowledge. And what we have is some resources here, which is structured story time, which guides an early years teacher with suggested opportunities. So here's how you might introduce a text. Here's some words you could use. Should we draw attention to this language here? What's the context of this teaching? What will they know and be able to do? And so every lesson has got a guide, which just gives an indication of what you could do. But we always go through being really clear with language, fluency and oracy, reading the text, and then thinking harder. And what we've created are these giant story notes that are printed out very big that are in the classroom. They help children navigate, not just to retell the story, but to engage in high quality interactions. And so they're deliberately positioned through dual coding. The words on the page are for the adults to interact with the children with, because the story is really important. And this is very much around using that language of quiet time, read and snuggle. So you'd have physical blankets, you'd have bears, you might have a little den.
Mm.
What you're trying to do is get the sense of there are worries. What happens when you might need to regulate yourself? And so we're talking about self-regulation in that way. So the resources are very, very powerful that allow teachers to dial into that. So they've got a class that are really interested in the local area, then I can bring Martha Maps It Out in. I can use that book. So
Yeah.
when we think about the early years sequencing, it's never the same because we need to think about the needs of the cohort, the foundational knowledge we want them to acquire, the rhythm of the year, what's happening, and carefully thinking about those children in front of me right now. Um, we have books that reveal things, standing up to racism, and the impact on these is phenomenal because this one is about melanin. Some people have a high
Yes, of
level of
course.
melanin in their skin,
That's
and
right.
that gives them this color of skin, and that's just incredible. So if
Mm.
I was to show some examples, here we go. So if I bring up Stand Up to Racism, here we go. Here's our Padlet. So we have examples of children engaging with different using skin-colored crayons. I'm not sure why that's dancing and it's a video.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you can see children accessing the resources,
yeah.
using the knowledge notes, attempting to write with structured provision. So using all their phonic knowledge, their sound spelling correspondences to really engage with that. And so opportunities to think hard
Mm.
around those. So these are the Padlets that we provide within there. So CUSP Early Foundations is about the foundational knowledge. It's about the book that will reveal that. So if I bring up, say, expressive arts and design, and we're thinking about music, drama, and dance, there are giant knowledge notes that help with repeated patterns, repeat from the beginning. So lots of
Oh,
ways.
that looks like fun. Yeah,
So it gives teachers those elements, and we're very proud within our early foundations is early foundations maths.
yeah.
And so we started with our reception class, and so we have our block one counting to three. And so what we've done is looked at all the deficits of all the maths programs out there, and then thought, let's use our research about what we know works, and then let's build the world's best maths curriculum. And that's what we're doing right now with some incredible world-renowned mathematicians. And so again, counting and teacher
Mm.
guides here. Notice the six phases
Yeah.
in an early years form, and then what you get are the knowledge notes that you use to support children's acquisition. So any opportunities and experiences you plan should be focused
What's
around.
that grid underneath the zero all about?
So this one here is about positioning, about the number. Where are these
Oh,
things?
okay. I see. Yeah.
Where's that exist? So if I looked at the number one, there is one. So it gives a direct correlation and reference. This represents one, and there's one bear, one leaf, one on a dice, two, one,
Yeah.
two. So you can start seeing the fit.
But of course, with zero, you've got nothing. Yeah, I
Exactly.
understand. as got it. Thank you.
That's all right. No worries. And so those elements are really important for the way we plan in the early years. But we've also we think about physical development of children because what we know is that children's sensory systems are directly impacted by their physical development, and that then tells us about their language development. So, for example, Julie and I have written a book called Early Years Language of Learning, which has really influenced high quality interactions, taken on the Shrek approach, and then saying, well, the Shrek approach is a framework, but the actual lived experience is this language framework development that we put together. And what it identifies is that physical development is not just about filling children's time riding bikes. We know that the physical development matures the sensory systems of proprioception and the vestibular systems, which means
That's right.
proprioception is about I can touch my elbow without looking at it. I know my body position. But the vestibular systems tell me where my head position is in relation to my body. Those children that have immature sensory systems might be rocking on the carpet because they don't know where their body is and they need to do that. They need to hold that position. But then what we need to do is train them and mature those sensory systems through physical development, squeezing, rolling, hanging, all those things there.
Yeah.
That's important to do. That has a direct impact upon their language development. And so a child with poor language acquisition might have an immature sensory system. Therefore, we have to activate the physical development. That's why it's prime in the early years. And as you can see, I'm very passionate about it. So I'll stop there.
Well, thank you very much indeed for introducing and showing us in full the early years framework for CUSP and the curriculum that you offer. Many, many thanks. And of course, many, many thanks for today. Bye for
Bye.
now. Bye.
Take care. Thank you.